Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3DO Experience, the 3DO retrospective podcast where we talk about the 3DO console, the company behind it, and everything in between. I am Bill, and this is Thrak. How you doing, Thrak?
I'm being a frosty, so I'm doing amazing. Sorry, I wanted to do that. Yeah, I'm eating a frosty right now, so I guess I'm doing okay. How are you, Bill?
I'm doing all right. I'm just tired. This week's been a lot. I've been doing a lot of we're like backed up to hell at work right now, so I'm like doing like all sorts of side jobs, like trying to catch up on things, and
Yeah,
it beats the hell out of you after a while.
yeah, I'm in that phase at work right now where we're tearing down one seasonal section for the next one. So, because oh yeah, it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to you weird fucks out there. Yeah. So yeah, we were tearing that down, and now we're setting up Easter because that's what's next. It's at the end of March this year, which is weird.
Yeah, yeah, it's an odd. It's weird because we go through like February. We've got President's Day, which not everyone gets off, and then like the next major holiday is Easter after that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's St. Patrick's Day.
Right. We usually don't get that one off though.
Oh, people take the day after off.
I'm aware. I'm aware. I
No,
usually don't, but
I don't really drink.
uh, I drink, but usually just on weekends, and it's always midweek. So
Yeah, I mean, I had a phase where I did a lot of drinking and stupid shit, but I think I had reached the peak of that. Like when you're crawling out of people's apartments that you don't know who they are, and you're like, "Why am I here? Why did I just throw up on their living room floor?" And it's like 4 a.m. You're like, "I probably shouldn't be doing this anymore," and then you stop. And that's what I did.
yeah, yeah. I cut it back to just weekends, and that's I think kept it under control. I got really bad during COVID, but I think a lot of people did. So
Yeah, my vices are more just like poor diet.
yeah,
I'm trying
there's
to.
always that.
Yeah, it just doesn't help that you're constantly surrounded by like stuff that isn't good for you, like constantly. And but you find ways around it, I guess.
Yeah, just trying to keep an exercise routine is usually my go-to these days.
Yeah, and also I go out of my way to be sure I have things that are good for me.
Yeah, yeah, that's always the best.
Oh yeah.
Um, so you might be noticing we're recording a day later than usual for the podcast. We had an episode planned. Things kind of fell through on that, so we'll be doing that next week. But
Yeah, fuck you, Aaron. Fuck you. I'm calling you out. I'm calling you out.
uh,
No, it's
yeah,
okay.
so we'll be doing
He
that.
he decided to spend Valentine's Day with his wife. What a piece of shit. Am I right? What a
Yeah,
little pussy. Instead of hanging with the boys. Nah, it's fine. It's fine.
he's
It's
good.
fine. I'm sure his wife's a lovely lady.
Yeah, it's
She's a
all good.
saint. She's a saint because she has to put up with him all the time.
Yeah, I've met her once on a stream.
Mm-hmm.
She seemed nice, but
I'm sure she is. If she's
yes,
listening, hi.
I doubt it. But anyways, so
That'd be funny.
we'll be doing that collab next week. So in the meantime, because this was completely last minute, we're gonna do another shooting the shit episode.
Yes, yes. I'm just gonna be eating a frosty and I don't know, Tomb Raider's on the brain, so we can talk about Tomb Raider if you want.
We could. I still have to finish the reboot. I only played the first one of the reboot trilogy. I started the second one and then something came out and I got distracted and I just haven't got back to it.
Okay. Well, I'm working on the third one right now. Um, I think it was somebody in one of the discords. They had finished Shadow, and one of my IRL friends had finished Shadow. So like of the Tomb Raider, not that other Shadow. Um, so it was kind of on the brain, and I was like, yeah, I need to finally get to that and knock it out. So I've been playing it. I'm not super far into it or anything, but um, I'm at a point where I'm not sure why people don't like it. at least compared to the other two, because it feels like it's more of the same. There's less of a focus on combat and more on exploration and going into like the challenge tombs and doing like puzzles and things. And I enjoy those. I always really enjoy the environmental puzzles. And I don't mind the lack of combat focus because I think Rise had a lot of combat in it. So I don't mind too much. I mean, I don't know. There are some weird things in the story. Because I will say Rise, I didn't care for Rise's story. I really didn't. I thought it was just kind of whatever, whereas I think 2013 had a really solid story. Like I still think about that story. Even though people often go on about ludonarrative dissonance when they talk about the Tomb Raider games, which to me it just feels very dumb and pretentious. Like people just learned what that term was and threw it on Tomb Raider, when there's so many other games that have that exact same problem that Tomb Raider has, but they don't get that flack for it at all. So I don't understand, and then there's people who complain about these games because Laura has small boobs now. Like who fucking care? Like, okay, I think it was today the 1 through 3 remaster trilogy came out, and people were talking about them, right? And I was just at work just YouTubing about it because I just wanted to see how they look, and they look fine. Some people are complaining about the classic mode being kind of janky, where it's like I think it was meant to be janky, but it's not the right kind of janky. I don't know. Don't care. I would just play them in the modern version anyway because they look much nicer and run at I think a perfect 60. Like Digital Foundry ran them through the Switch, 60 no problem, right? So, but at the front of the remaster trilogy, there's a little text thing that's basically the Crystal Dynamics saying like, oh, there might be some offensive shit in these games, so we're sorry. We didn't want to cut it because it would take a lot more work. So it's here, sorry, but we're going to keep it in or whatever. And I think that's fine. I think it's fine to address that stuff.
It's not. They're not even Crystal's games technically.
But they own them now because they got the Tomb Raider license after Core completely died.
Well, no. Core got the license taken away from them because Angel of Darkness was that bad.
But they died not that long after.
Yeah, they did a few smaller things.
Yes, they did the sort of iconic game between me and my work friend Hurdy-Gurdy for the PS2. I'd have to get the whole story from him, but he got it because he got a PS2, and I think he was like his stepmom or something was like, he likes games. Here's a game, and just gave him it, and he played a lot of it. So it's made me want to try out that game. But learning that game was made by the same people is hilarious to me.
Yeah, it's funny to me that IDOS was like, even though apparently IDOS was partially responsible for how Angel of Darkness came out because they were very like, it needs to be this, and Core was like, well, shit.
Yeah.
Because it's just funny to me. IDOS was like, this game is so bad, we're taking your franchise from you and giving it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Get the Gex team. They can do better.
Well, arguably they did. But seeing that thing in the front, which is perfectly fine, right? Why not? If you watch most things on Disney Plus pre like the 80s, they all have that exact same thing where it's like, oh, there's some fucked up shit in here, just letting you. It's essentially a trigger warning.
Jackass has it on Paramount Plus.
Yeah. To be fair, watching Jackass now, it's amazing. Because when you're a kid, I guess you don't think about it the same way you do now. But watching that stuff now is like, holy fuck.
I watch it now and I'm like, the first skit they did in the Jackass TV show was literally the poop cocktails. So.
Oh yeah. But it's fair to be like, there's some fucked up shit here. So just letting you know ahead of time. But with that Tomb Raider thing, I saw a lot of, I'm gonna use heavy air quotes, outrage. These like weirdo people on YouTube who they're absolutely grifting. There's this one channel.
never actually played the originals as far most likely.
Yeah. Like there's this one channel. I don't want to call her out because I don't remember her name and I don't fucking care. But like she made a whole 20-minute video about that one thing and doing like the fakest like this is bullshit thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's like you are playing this up, you do not care. You're just doing it to get clicks. You know, it's all
Yeah,
you're doing. And I agree with you. She probably never played the originals. And if
I mean,
she did, it was probably a long ass time ago and she doesn't remember.
if you play the
Because
original Tomb Raider, you look at Laura's model. Her model is jank as fuck in the original
yeah.
game.
And it's funny that when I also saw that little thing at the front of the trilogy, there were some people who was like, "Oh, there's that like that one thing in 3 that was kind of iffy. There's that thing in 2 that was kind of like." Some people immediately were like, "Oh, it's probably because of that," which is fair, you know. So
Yeah,
it's just a lot of like fake out. It feels very Gamergate or like trying to recreate that stuff, you know, like getting mad at, you know, because it's also like people who are like, oh, feminism is what made Laura's boobs shrink or whatever. And I'm like, if you're that kind of
no.
person, you really need to go outside, man.
The only
Okay.
reason Laura's boobs were as big as they were in the first game is because they fucked up a decimal point and they thought it was funny, so they just left it in.
Yeah. And then they became a trademark and they're like, well, we got to stick with it.
Yeah, that's why her model is so fucking stupid in the
Yeah.
original game.
But like, yeah. But if you look at the more modern ones, you know, they're like, you know, let's not give her back problems. Because think about it, she's doing all this acrobatic shit, and she has those giant gazongas right in front. You know, she's got some back problems. Okay, like literally, ask any woman. You know, for some people this might be tough. Ask any woman who has big ones how much their back hurts. They will tell you all the fucking time. But
Even like
imagine doing
going
those
like
like kick flips and like
yeah,
shooting double pistols at wolves. Like it. That's no. I want
e-
fuck that.
even going back to like the soft reboot with Tomb Raider Legend, like they weren't that big in Legend. Like Legend, her
No,
model is
no.
much better in that game.
Again, it's all just fake bullshit. But I will say with the Tomb Raider series, I've only really went through the reboot trilogy. That's the most I've ever played. I had the original on Sega Saturn
Mm.
when I had my Saturn collection, and trying to play that game with a D-pad wasn't going to cut it. I don't think it had 3D controller support because I did have the 3D controller.
So that was a launch title for Saturn, and I believe that was before the 3D control. Well, if not launch, very early Saturn game.
Yeah.
I don't believe the 3D controller was a thing yet.
Yeah, it wasn't until Nights, I think.
Yeah,
So, yeah, which I think that would help. But the remastered trilogy, I think it's what like $30 right now. I threw it on my wish list, so when it's like half that, I'll probably just buy it.
my favorite.
I may end up going through more of the series because I am enjoying what I'm playing here, and I'm
Those are,
curious for the back catalog.
the early games are a little jank nowadays, but they're still kind of fun.
And
My favorite part about the second game was the quote unquote nude code, which
oh, I've heard about that.
which was just the developers trolling all the losers. Basically, you type in the code and Laura jumps in the air and it explodes. It's like that's your nude code.
She's so nude, she's dead.
Yep.
Yeah, that's funny. And I think it was Legend on Series X. I think it was like $2 or something.
Legend's
So
really good.
I've heard good things about. Was it Legend, Anniversary, and Underworld? I think
Yeah, those were Crystal's first three
the
games before the
the
full-on
first
reboot.
Crystal trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was looking into when they announced, I think it was 22, they announced they're working on another Tomb Raider, another reboot, but I think it's from what I read, it was supposed to be something that kind of brings all the timelines together or something, and I think it's gonna have a little bit more of a focus on the survival aspect, you know, which I actually think is a good idea with how, especially with how the reboots have gone. It's like if you want to go in that direction, I don't see that as a bad thing at all. So maybe get a little bit past the whole like, oh, it's just Uncharted thing, and kind of give it its own direction. Because even though these games get compared to Uncharted a lot, I actually find them better games overall than Uncharted. Like people like the story and the characters of those more, and you know they do the big thing, whatever it's trying, the cinematic platforming thing pretty well. But I think Tomb Raider takes that concept and tries to craft more of a game out of it and less of a
Yeah.
movie.
Like shout out to to a friend of the show, Chris, over at a Novel Console. He recently did an episode talking with Josh from Still Loading Podcast, and they actually summed up Naughty Dog like perfectly to me. Where like they literally pointed out that their gameplay is never the greatest, but their stories are really what bring people in.
I would agree with that.
Which, after hearing that, I was kind of like, yeah, he's right.
Though I do like the Crash trilogy.
Crash is kind of the exception to that.
Yeah, because the Crash games aren't really known for their stories. I mean, they have one, but it's very mild.
Because I mean, you look at Jak and Daxter, and it's like, aside from the first game, the gameplay in 2 and 3 is very meh. Like, there's parts that I like, but parts that kind of like the gunplay sucks.
Yeah,
but the story is where it's at. Because like, out of the big 3, I always thought Sly was the best platformer. Ratchet had the best gameplay, and then Jak and Daxter had probably the best story.
it was the angst.
Yeah.
Even though I've only really played Daxter, the PSP game, I haven't touched the other ones, so I can't say too much. Because wasn't the first Jak and Daxter meant to be like a Mario 64?
Yeah, it's a collectathon. It's a really good collectathon.
I'd probably like it because I do like 3D collectathon platformers. And then 2, it turns in like an open world GTA thing or whatever, where it's like, oh, he talks. And was it like the first thing he said? He's like, I'm gonna fucking kill that shithead. Or
yeah, his Daxter finds him after the events of Daxter, and he literally goes, "Come on, Jack, say something for once." And Jack just goes, "I'm gonna kill Praxis," and it's like, "Whoa,
I'm gonna kill that bitch!" Like, oh wow,
yeah.
Which they're probably just kind of poking fun of like that early 2000s angst at the time.
Well, another thing
that would be my guess.
Jak 1 was also heavily criticized for being too easy because it's a very simple. It's a great platform, but it is pretty on the easy side. Like, I had no issues 100%ing it.
Yeah.
So in response, they made Jak 2 hard as fuck for no reason.
And then with Jak 3, did it kind of even out?
Yeah, Jak 3 is more in the middle, although there's a lot of driving like sections that are very. Imagine a lot of driving sections in games that are kind of tacked on. It's not the funnest shit.
Oh yeah, because then they made a whole racing game out of Jak.
Yeah,
which didn't make any sense to me.
I just thought it was Naughty Dog's weird obsession with making kart racers after 3 games, which I'm still waiting for Uncharted. But
Uncharted would have been fun. You know, I would have enjoyed that.
It would have been a funny like inside joke, but I honestly was happier with Uncharted 4. So
yeah, well, my guess is like, oh, Sony's too serious for that, because it feels like they can't allow their studios or their games to be like silly at all anymore. They all have to be very serious or feel like,
unless it's Insomniac.
Yeah, because Ratchet's the only one that's still hung around, which is kind of weird when you think about it, because of like Jak, Ratchet, and Sly, I was always a Sly guy. I love Sly Cooper to death. And, you know, I played a little bit of Ratchet and Clank, but I always just thought it was okay. Like, it never really blew my mind. But I've considered going through that series because I would probably enjoy them. Like, I remember when we hit the PS3, I was like, oh, they're still doing Ratchet games? You know, I was just completely out of the loop on that one. And I don't think Jak and Daxter ever got PS3 games. I think they did that collection for them.
They did the collection. So they got Daxter, and then there was that PSP game, The Lost Frontier, which is
it's a game.
It's got decent gameplay. The story is fucking bizarre though, because Naughty Dog clearly didn't make it.
Yeah. And then
apparently Insomniac wants to do more Sly. I'm not Insomniac. Sucker Punch wants to do more Sly.
Yeah.
They just don't have time. Yeah, because they're one game studio.
Yeah, because they're focused on the next Ghost of game. So, because if I remember correctly, during the PS3 era, it was Sansru Games went to Sony and said, "Hey, we'll do another Sly game if you want." And Sony's like, "Remaster the trilogy first." And then they did that, and that collection on PS3 is fantastic. Like, it's one of the really, really good PS3 collections, in my opinion. And it went so well, they're like, okay, make Sly 4. And Sly 4 happened, and it's fine. I don't know, man.
It's a good game, but it's not 2 or 3 by any means.
Oh, not even close. I
Like
mean, I'll even think it's as good as one, and one is very whatever.
it has moments that are better than one. I'd say it's a very odd game to me because you can clearly tell Sanzaru truly cared.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's definitely made with a love for the franchise, but it wasn't made with the game know-how that Sucker Punch has. You know,
And
like
especially the writing, because my god, that story.
oh, the writing is so bad.
They
Because
shit all over
well,
the ending to 3 in so many ways.
which I think if Sucker Punch had done it, it probably would have been funnier. Because it feels like the ending of Sly 3 is like, they're gonna find a way around it. You know, they would, but just the way they do it in 4 just didn't work for me. But when I bought my Vita, the first game I bought for it was Sly 4 because I wanted to own it again. I've played a bit of it on Vita. It's the same game. So
I gotta track that down at some point.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I have the digital copy because it was one of those like 3 games that they did that they were like cross buy. You buy it on PS3, you also get the Vita version. It's like
Yeah. Which is neat. I like that they do that.
it was neat. They only did it for 3 games though.
Which is weird. But yeah, Sly Thieves in Time. I mean, if you've played the other 3, go for it. Might as well. But if you haven't played a Sly Cooper game, play Sly 2.
Yeah,
2
play-
is amazing. Oh, like I replay that game every couple years. It's so good. Still an amazing game.
As a pure platformer, I still think Sly 1 is a fantastic game.
Yeah. Yeah, Sly 1 is still really good, but Sly 1's much more linear and level based, whereas 2 and 3 go for the open hub, like the GTA design, where it's an open hub and then you do all the missions within the hub.
Yeah, it's like a mission structure, which works really well for that kind of game.
Yeah, and it allows for the multiple characters and the multiple play styles. Like Sly 3 is probably my favorite just because of how far out they expand the formula by like adding in all these other characters and really seeing how far they could push doing all of these different things. And one of my favorite moments in the Sly 3 story, it's the area where you're doing the dog fighting. And I think it's Bentley is trying to distract like the champion, right? And and he just goes up and just like stares at him and doesn't say anything. And the guy's like, what aren't you supposed to say something? Say something, And Bentley just said, well, my mother taught me if I have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And then he just goes back to being silent. He's like, really? You're not going to say anything? Damn, that's cold, man.
Sucker Punch, like so good.
Like that's real. Yeah, that's a really good like subtle joke. So I appreciated that. I've tried to find a way to incorporate that into real life, but I haven't met anybody that way yet. So maybe one day I can be a little shit. But yeah, Sucker Punch are great. Even though I've only really played the Sly Cooper games, I haven't tackled anything else they've done.
I highly recommend Infamous.
Yeah. Well, when I eventually get my PS5, I will go through like the Infamous games. I'll go through Ghost of Tsushima. Like those will probably be the ones I go for right away.
Hopefully by then there'll be a way to play Infamous 1 and 2 on PS5.
Yeah. I mean, if they're going to keep remastering all these games for PS5, why not remaster PS3 games? Or take like PS4 versions of those are already playable, but you know what I mean? Like PS3 games that aren't playable on PS5, like go there, spruce them up, bring them over. Like do what Nintendo did with the Wii U games. Like you might as well. Like people will buy them. Just fucking do it. It seems stupidly simple. Instead of remastering a game you can already play on the system and like taking features out, but just doing it to create like a consistency or something that just feels kind of pointless. I don't know. I don't understand it. Like I keep hearing, I don't know if they've announced it yet, but I'm hearing there's like a Horizon Zero Dawn like remaster for PS5 coming. And it's like there's literally no reason for it because it already runs at 60 on PS5, so there's no reason to do it. We'll do all this shit, but we can't get a Bloodborne remaster. Can't get that. Not allowed to have that. That there might be an issue with that in FromSoft, maybe. Like the rights may be in a weird limbo. It's the only thing possible. I could guess. Because I know Sony published it, but
and
I don't know
co-developed
if that
it. I believe Japan Studio co-developed it.
Well, it was FromSoft, right?
Yeah, I believe it was made in partnership with FromSoft and Japan Studio, similar to how Demon Souls was.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it was co-developed and supervised by Japan Studio. So yeah, there might be like some weird rights issues going on with that. Maybe, I don't know. But it just seems weird that that would be such an easy one to like just say like Bloodborne remaster coming to PS5 and PC, like 60 FPS and everything. Like that's easy money right there. Like they wouldn't even have to do that much. Like just put the frame rate in 60, maybe clean up a couple textures, maybe throw some quality of life improvements if there are any. I've never played Bloodborne, I don't know. And just there you go. And you can
It's,
resell it at full price and people will pay for it. Like
I mean, especially with how popular Elden Ring was.
yeah, like if Bloodborne remaster was $70, you would hear people bitch about it, but they would buy it anyways.
Oh yeah,
Because it's Bloodborne, you know?
I mean, it is the easiest Souls game, like well, Souls game. In a sense.
It's a Souls game.
Yeah,
It's
it
made by FromSoft. I call it a Souls game.
it's basically a successor to Demon Souls in a lot of ways.
Yeah, which I believe, if I'm correct on this, aren't the like Demon Souls like the Souls games like continuations of like the Kingsfield universe?
Yes, well, it's definitely heavily like inspired by it at
Okay,
the very least.
okay, because I had heard that once.
Yeah, those are old PS1 games. I'd love to get my hands on, but they're so expensive and hard to find
Yeah,
nowadays.
aren't they like first person dungeon crawlers?
Mm. Yeah, yeah. FromSoft's back catalog is fucking weird.
Yeah, yeah, I've looked through it. It is strange. Like I remember I used to see all the time like Lost Kingdoms 1 and 2 on GameCube at like the rental store. And I never rented them. I don't know why. Maybe it's just looking at them like as a kid, I was like, "Oh, those are probably like weird RPG things." And as a kid, I didn't understand them. So maybe that's why I never got around to them. But I used to see them all the time. And I've heard good things about those games. So,
There were so many GameCube games that I remember seeing on the shelf back in the day, just like sitting there for like nothing, and I passed on them. And nowadays, it's like they're so expensive and unnecessary. It's ridiculous.
I could have got Skies of Arcadia for $50.
Yeah.
And I remember liking the cover. I remember thinking like, "Oh, it was a little much for me at the time." I mean, I didn't have as much money back then.
Yeah.
So it seemed like, "Oh, that's a lot for that game." And
Now,
now I look at the price and I go, I should have just did it. You
now,
know,
like most GameCube games, you look at the price and you just go, fuck.
why? Why?
Like the two
I
Pokemon games are 100 a piece now. It's like, what the hell?
But that's Pokemon. Like Pokemon always goes up in value. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Seriously, like X and Y are probably going to start going up in value. And those are the ones nobody likes, apparently.
They're the last ones I played. So,
Yeah. I've not like X and Y was probably the first gen I started hearing people like complain about Pokemon. So
yeah. I gotta replay those at some point.
yeah, maybe.
Or maybe I should actually finish Sun and Moon. I only got 5 minutes into it before I put it down.
All I remember when I got my copy of Moon was it came with my 3DS, and I deleted the 100 plus hour save file that was in it, and got a lot of joy out of that. And then put like I played enough to where you pick your starter, and went a little bit beyond that, and I was just like, eh, it's fine, but I don't know if I want to stick with it. I forget the Sun and Moon starters off the top of my
The
head.
the cat, the owl, and
Oh, Rowlet, Litten, and
the blue thing.
Poplio. Poplio.
Yes.
Yeah, I went with Rowlet. And
Okay.
I'm not normally a grass type. I'm usually the water type.
See, I usually
But
always
I
pick the
know.
grass type, but for some reason I saw the owl and I just thought Blathers, and I was just like, nope.
I mean, Rowlet looks like the SpongeBob meme of "Hi, how are you?" That's what he looks like, and I think that's why I picked him.
Mm.
But yeah, usually with all the Pokemon starters, I tend to go the water type one. Don't know why. It's just this the like I always went Squirtle in Gen 1. Um Gen 2, yeah, I'd probably go Totodile or Cyndaquil. Gen 3, probably Mudkip. Yeah. Gen 4, Piplup. Absolutely. Who doesn't love Piplup? He's so cute. He's a cute little penguin. He's great.
Gen 4 and 5 probably the last two that just have great starters all around.
Yeah. Yeah. Oshawott. He's also really cute. And then X and Y. Oh, yeah. I go Froakie. Absolutely. Because he turns into Greninja.
Yeah. Froakie was the first
Greninja's
water type I picked.
Yeah, he turns into a fucking ninja with like a tongue
Scarf
or whatever. It was weird as hell. But yeah, I went Rowlet and Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield. Fuck, I don't know. None of these are that appealing to me.
Oh no, the starters have gone downhill so fast.
Yeah, and then I liked in Legends they gave you like 3 that we've already seen before but mixed up.
Oshawott, Cyndaquil, and I forget Rowlet, and everyone picked Cyndaquil. I was just like, yeah, that was expected.
Because it's Cyndaquil, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Gen 2, baby.
The old one, they were all like, ooh, Gen 2, Cyndaquil.
Yeah, and then the new one, I'd probably go Quaxley.
Is that the duck? Yeah, the duck.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the water types. I don't know why.
My favorite's Pokemon Sceptile, so I always just pick the grass types.
That's fair. If I had to, well, I always used to say my favorite Pokemon was Ditto, just to be like, haha. But if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Squirtle. I'd keep him as a pet. I feel like he'd be a good pet to keep.
Yeah.
There's a funny clip. I think I posted it in one of the Discords of sports commentator Stephen A. Smith. Somebody like tweeted him out like which one you taken, and it was the Gen 3 starters or Gen 1 starters. And he's like, what the hell are these? And he said like Bulbasaur, Chamander. He said Chamander and the Squirtle. But he picked, I called it. He picked Chamander, and he said because it reminds me of me because of my forehead. He's like going bald.
That's good.
I respected that. And then somebody showed him the final evolutions. You know, like which one? And he's like, oh, Charizard. Like he's got fire on his tail. Like hell yeah. I mean, who doesn't like Charizard? Everybody likes Charizard.
Most people like Charizard.
He's very popular. He's one of the most popular Pokemon we got.
I'm reading the Pokemon manga right now, and it's like it threw me off that the main character Red doesn't pick Charizard in the manga.
Is he Bulbasaur?
Yeah, he picks Bulbasaur. It's weird.
Well, because that's who Ash picked, I think, at the start.
No, Ash got Pikachu.
I thought the Pokemon anime started with him getting Bulbasaur, and that's why Bulbasaur's number 1 in the Pokedex.
No, in the Pokemon anime, he goes to pick up his Pokemon, and Professor Oak's like, "You slept in; they're all gone."
Oh, okay.
And he gets Pikachu because it's all that's left.
Because I swear to God, he had a Bulbasaur.
Well, he does get Bulbasaur. He gets all the starters eventually.
Oh yeah, as we all do.
That's why in Pokemon Yellow they make it so you can get all 3 because they designed it kind of off the anime.
Yeah, but I didn't play Pokemon Yellow because I'm not a Pikachu fan. I don't like Pikachu. I always found Pikachu kind of annoying.
I always preferred Raichu.
Yeah, Raichu's cooler.
I always hated you couldn't level him up in Yellow.
Well, I remember the episode of the anime where Pikachu was going to evolve into Raichu, and Ash had to make the decision to stop it. Like it was like a whole thing. He's like, "Oh, I can't let him be Raichu." It's like, "What? You don't want him to be better? You just want him to be worse? What's wrong with you?"
Ash got his badges in the most fucking retarded way.
Our first edit, everyone. Hey, our first edit.
34 seconds.
Y'all didn't get to hear it, but Bill has made his first edit on this show. It took almost 30 episodes. We did it.
I try not to say that every now and then, but sometimes it slips out and I'm just like, yeah.
Why does that just slip out though? Like it's not that hard to not say.
No, it's because we grew up in that era and it just kind of like
I don't say it anymore.
I don't usually. Sometimes it slips out and you just go, ugh.
If I ever say that word, and we'll let everybody guess what word it is. If I ever say that word, it's because I do it as like a joke of going out of my way to say it, and the joke is that I said it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's ironic.
You saw I caught myself as I said it right away. I was like, ah.
Which is even better.
Yeah.
He half-assed it.
Yeah, apologies. But
It was not the N-word. I want to
No.
clarify that. He didn't say that.
That's not even in like regular
Good,
vocabulary.
good. Because if he did, I would be chastising him right now.
Well,
I would put on my white savior jacket, and be like, I'm going to defend the honor of black people by telling a white person not to say the N-word, because that's what I'm supposed to do. I think.
yeah,
I don't know. With that aside,
there's a difference between like middle school, like just general like
Xbox
gamer,
Live chat,
and then something that's just offensive in all regards and has never been
yeah,
good to say. So
no. Though even
No,
the other,
I
even though the other word you said, it's like, it's probably not something we ever should have really said. If we
No,
think about it, like,
well,
we
the
probably shouldn't
meaning of
have.
the word has changed over time, and
Yeah,
it's
as
just
words do.
yeah. No, I would have if I said the other word, I would have just canceled the podcast right away and been like, I shouldn't be podcasting anymore.
I'm gonna do a solo podcast about the Atari Jaguar.
Yeah,
which would be funny.
Anyways, moving on from that.
Yeah, I don't know how we move on from that. See, yeah, like, why'd they name him Turtwig? That's such a stupid word. Turtwig, the grass type in Gen 4.
Oh, Turtwig.
Turtwig? I don't like that. Sounds wrong. Chimchar? Yeah, Chimchar's fine.
See, I like Gen 5s because everyone made like Metal Gear jokes off of them because of Oshawott. Sounds like everyone was like, it's Revolver Oshawott.
Revolver Oshawott, yeah.
Revolver Oshawott to Pig Boss and Solid Snivy. Those were the jokes everyone made.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I remember looking through the Pokedex, right? With a friend of mine, and I was like, okay, Gen 1, I know all these pretty well, looking through, yeah, like Psyduck, Poliwag, Poliwrath, Alakazam, Machop, Bellsprout, like, oh yeah, I know all these pretty well, no problem. Original 151, I got this, I feel comfortable. And then we hit Gen 2, and I'm like, I'm slipping a little bit, but I know some of these. Like I know Igglybuff, Togepi. I didn't know Togepi was Gen 2.
It's because in the anime they didn't introduce it a lot earlier.
Yeah, and I always thought it was like Chirkapri or something, because that to me that's how it sounded when Togepi talked. But the Chirkapri, and I'll never forget the episode where we saw what Togepi could do, like the power that it had. And they're like, and it freaked everybody out, especially like Misty was like, holy shit, I've been just cradling a nuke in my hand for the last however many episodes. So
yeah,
weird how that works out, I guess.
I'm trying to think if anything got announced. Oh yeah, we never talked about it. What are your thoughts on Sonic X Shadow Generations?
It feels like, in a lot of ways, it feels like glorified fan fiction.
Oh, that is that. When I saw that name, I'm like, that is a risky Google search right there.
Yeah, don't Google that, kids. It's interesting. It's like, oh, they got the movie to promote because the Sonic 3 movie's coming out. I think it's coming out this year, and Shadow is in it. So
and supposedly voiced by Hayden Christensen,
which is perfect.
Oh, I'm all for it. When I heard that, I'm
like Idris Elba being Knuckles was weird, but I was kind of on board for it. And then during the Super Bowl, they announced a 6-episode miniseries just about Knuckles on Paramount Plus, and I'm like, I have to watch that. I mean, I will, but
as long as it doesn't get Ken Pander's like level bizarre, I'm fine.
I have a feeling they got Idris to do all 6 episodes as well.
Yeah,
but he's probably not that busy. In any case, but yeah, seeing that was weird because I really like Sonic Generations. I still think it holds up really well. So getting to play it again, but with that Shadow campaign, will be interesting.
I'm interested in the Shadow camp. I'm just glad it's getting a port to modern systems because Generations is still an excellent game aside from its final boss, which is like the worst part of that game.
Yeah, I mean, we could do like a special 3DO or GNC about it because we're obviously both going to play it and talk about it. So,
or get Matt to play and we'll do a Geek Addicts or something.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. because I wasn't expecting to have to replay Generations this year, but um, let's see. Yeah, they've done Colors, they've done Generations. As far as like remasters, do you ever think they'll do anything with Lost World? Think they'll bring
I
it back?
I doubt it. That the Wii U deal, I feel like they're just gonna pretend never. I mean, it's on PC, so they
Yeah,
kind of might just look. I mean, then again, Generations is too, though.
yeah. Well, I think with the Generations thing, it was probably just like, oh, we can take a game that's already really good, just add a bunch of shadow BS to it, and then rebrand it, and everyone will go, oh yeah, that one, that's the good one,
Yeah,
and just kind of go from there. Like they weren't gonna remaster Shadow the Hedgehog, which would be incredible, you know. But I mean, with Lost World, I would say like fuck it, put it on Switch, PS5, and Xbox. Why not? Like I
I mean,
know people aren't
it's not
high
a
on that game.
It's not a bad game. It's just such a average game.
Yeah, but I feel like it's one of those games. It's like just do it. It probably wouldn't take that much effort to do. You
No,
know, why not? And then people have been asking for Heroes to come back. Why not?
I
You
mean,
know,
Heroes isn't bad.
Heroes is fine. It's
The
never ever gotten a port to any, like once it got like PS2, Xbox, GameCube, PC, and then that was it. Which kind of blew my mind when I first learned it. It'd never been
the
ported ever.
PS2 version got put on PSN for like a month and then got taken off. It was weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. But I
Maybe
mean,
it's because they realized it was the PS2 version, and the PS2 version's a flaming pile of shit.
yeah, probably be easier to do like the Xbox version. That's probably the one that looks and runs the best.
I think GameCube technically runs the best because I heard the Xbox version had issues as well.
Well, then there you go. Just do the GameCube one then. GameCube stay winning. But yeah, I think here, but Heroes would require a lot more work. Like you'd have to go in and really clean that one up.
Yeah,
And then we'd get to hear everyone complain about like you have to beat this game 4 times to get the true ending. Yes, you do. Yes,
yeah.
you do. And I think Adventure 1 and 2 remakes, that would probably be a beefier project that I think they would want to put a lot of time into to get that just right. Because I think they recognize Sonic Adventure still holds a lot of weight, that name. And they
Yeah,
wouldn't want to just, because if they just ported them, it wouldn't mean anything.
they've already Adventure One's already been ported like 100 times.
And it
Like,
got worse each time.
yeah, the most recent version is a port of a port of a port of a port.
Yeah. So they'd be better off just going in and just remaking those games kind of from the ground up.
They'd have to because the Dreamcast version is the best playing version, and that's still a glitchy glitchy mess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you'd want to give those games the modern makeover. Like honestly, like FF7 them. Just completely redo them from scratch. But keep them what everybody remembers them being, because there's a lot of issues with 1 and 2 that could use some fixing. So
One is just really glitchy, and
what
a
I
couple of the stories don't need to be there.
well, what I don't like about 1 is I didn't like the hub worlds and having to like run around figuring out where the hell I need to go
See, I
just to
didn't
do
mind
like
them
the
because they
action
weren't that
stages.
big.
Yeah, but I just found them annoying because I think Sonic works better like level based, because that's what Adventure 2 does. Like there's no bullshit. Just all right, level, 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 right? And I think that's much better, especially for a more kind of faster paced experience. So
Yeah, I give one the pass just because it's not great, but I did enjoy like you go around one's hub world and you talk to the NPCs and they actually have story arcs.
yeah, like it's not bad or anything, but it's just I just didn't really enjoy it when I was playing through it on my Dreamcast. So
Yeah,
it is,
it's
but I like Shenmue, so what do I know?
yeah, sailors. I'm gonna go find some sailors.
Yeah, it's a rough one, Shenmue, but it just I don't know, it charmed me the whole time.
Shenmue for the time was amazing, and then there's a reason why Shenmue 3 was like, wow, this game did not hold up well.
Like I'm sure Shenmue seemed very ahead of the time when it came out, but think about it, that came out in 2000, and then 1 year later we got Grand Theft Auto 3, and I think that completely threw Shenmue under the bus.
Well, because 3 actually had direction. Shenmue's whole gimmick was that it was supposed to be this game where you kind of just jumped into the world and there was a story, but you didn't really have to follow it. You could just
Like
do
an immersive
whatever.
sim, I think, is maybe what
I
they were
I
going
think
for.
Yu Suzuki referred to it as the genre he wanted to call it was literally free because you could do anything in it.
Is he full of himself?
I don't know, to be honest. He's
Or
he
is he
isn't
just
really.
or is he just one of those guys who's like he's an artist and it's like that's just how he like talks, but
I
sometimes
think
it's hard to get the meat of the information out of him, you know?
I think it's mostly he's like an artist
Yeah.
because he his
I don't want to say he's pretentious or anything. Like I know he's done good work.
the majority
But
of his background. I mean, even Shenmue to a degree speaks for his talent.
yeah.
It's not like he like kind of lucked his way through because I mean, AM2 made some of the greatest games Sega ever made.
Yeah, like he did Space Harrier, Outrun, Afterburner,
Virtual Fighter,
sort
Virtual
of
Racing,
yeah, even stuff like Sort of Vermilion.
Daytona USA,
Yeah, Virtual Cop, Virtua Striker, Fighting Vipers,
18
Sonic the
Wheels,
Fighters Mega Mix. Ah,
18 Wheeler American Pro Trucker, best trucking game ever made.
it's not a bad game.
It's a fun game. It's a really
Oh,
fun
oh,
game.
did you ever play Beach Spikers? That like Sega volleyball game on
Yep,
GameCube?
I've
That
played
game's
that.
awesome. Love that game. Yeah, he has done a lot of like genuinely good stuff, and then Shenmue is obviously more his baby.
Honestly, I think his
Um,
weakest game is Shenmue 3, to be honest.
I've never played Shenmue 3. I don't know if I'll ever get around to play it. Maybe when I get a
It
PS5, I'll try it out. But to be fair, I never finished Shenmue 2.
it's fair.
I mean, Shenmue 2 is good, but it just, I don't know, it just felt like more of the same. Whereas I think Shenmue 1 was really like, it felt like Shenmue 1 was trying to be something very different and very unique. And I think it does succeed in being unique. Whether or not it succeeds in being good, I think is a different conversation. But then Shenmue 2 feels like it's just taking the Shenmue formula and making something that's just more of a linear story driven experience.
Well, it was the
Right.
second part of a 6-part storyline.
Yeah. And then what was it? Shenmue 3 was like parts 3, 4, and 5 or something.
No, Shenmue 3 also ends on a fucking cliffhanger. That's what pissed everyone off.
Well, because I think even he said that Shenmue 3 wasn't going to end it.
Yeah, just the fact is though, a lot of people didn't have any like hope. Didn't have a lot of hope that it was going to go beyond 3.
Yeah. And then everyone got mad at how it looked.
I mean, it looks fine.
I mean, I thought it to me with Shenmue, it's like, it should just look like that. You
yeah,
know, it looks kind of funky and weird, but like whatever. Like
I
that's
think
kind of what I expected out of it.
I think the problem Shenmue has nowadays is that its quote unquote successor. I don't know how much of a successor this truly is, but a lot of people say
Yakuza.
Yakuza was basically the successor to Shenmue.
There are similarities.
I
There
see
are.
it. I see it to a degree. I think Yakuza is a much better designed series overall.
Well, I think why is because Yakuza has it knows what it wants to be right away.
Hmm.
And just goes for it. Like even the little bit of the original Yakuza I played on PS2, like it has direction, you know? Like it has a well-established character in Kazuma Kiryu and it has a story that it wants to tell and it tells it. But obviously as the series goes on, it develops more and more into being its own thing.
Yeah,
But you can tell from the first Yakuza they were trying to the way I describe it is as if Shenmue and Grand Theft Auto had a baby.
yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like. And and I remember seeing the first Yakuza at the time and not really being sure what to think about it. And I heard people saying like, "Oh, it's just like a Shenmue type game," or it's like, "Oh, it's like a GTA clone." Like that's what I had heard at the time, and so I had put it off. And then
And then you
years,
play it, and you're
then
like, "This is nothing like either of them."
it has elements of both, but it is still very much its own thing. And nowadays, it's absolutely its own thing.
Well,
It's kind of a beast in its own way.
now it's a full-on RPG, a good
Yeah,
RPG, but it's
I,
it's just
yeah. I've been playing Infinite Wealth, a little time here and there.
it's a
What I
lot of
like,
game.
what I like about it is it's one of those games that I can just play a little bit of, put it down, do something else, and come back, and I'm still right there.
It
Like,
says so much about that studio that they literally the RPG thing was completely a joke, and then they went with it and made it fucking great.
Yeah, and it's some of the best turn-based combat I've ever experienced. And Infinite Wealth even makes it better. Like they fixed a
Mm.
lot of little things that were wrong in 7, things I didn't necessarily think about or put that much weight into. But when you get to Infinite Wealth, it's like, oh yeah, that is better. Like
That and
I enjoy that more.
they managed to follow up such an amazing character like Kiryu and replaced him with Ichiban, who is equally as fucking amazing.
I love Ichi. Ichi's he's the best. He's the best. I do have one complaint with Infinite Wealth, and that is I think too many of the side stories do the sectioning thing where it's like you have a little cutscene, you maybe do a little activity, and then it goes away, and then you have to do some stuff, and then you come back to it, right? Like there are some that you do that way too many times, and it feels like the side stories just kind of drag. You know, that they feel like, oh, we have to add in all this extra stuff. Like there's one where you help out a kid at a lemonade stand, and the amount of steps that you do in that whole one just it felt way too much, like completely unnecessary. Like the writing is still good and everything, but it felt like you could trim it down. One I think that did a good job trimming that is you meet this Hollywood director who his stuntmen have walked off because he wants to do realistic stunts. And Kazuma and or not Kazuma, Ichiban's like, yeah, I'll just do it. And you basically are running down the street, avoiding like cars coming straight at you with explosions on the side. You know, it's like a Michael Bay movie. You do that once, and I was like, oh, it's probably going to be like we do this like maybe a couple more times or whatever. There's a pretty extended cutscene, and then it's it. It's done. I don't know if it activated a mini game or not. It may have, but that like little cutscene right after where he talks about how he doesn't like CGI, like the director, he doesn't like CGI. He wants, realism. He's like, it looks better if it's in front of the camera, and I agree with him on that. But seeing Ichiban do his thing convinces the other stunt guys to come back, and then the director's like, oh, here's what we'll do for the next one. We're gonna have you jump off the skyscraper up there, but for added realism, we're gonna get rid of the safety harnesses.
Genius.
and the stuntmen are like, yeah, sure. And Ichiban's like, what? You crazy? And he's like, oh yeah, you're gonna do it too. He's like, no, I'm not. And the director's like, oh, we'll have a bunch of pillows and blankets at the bottom. You'll be fine. And Ichiban says, I think, and I can quote this. He's like, oh, pillows and blankets, that'll be great for the permanent nap I'll be taking. And he ends up just running away from the directors chasing after him. And
See,
that was the end of that one. And I was like, that was perfect.
I
That was
love the
brilliant.
off.
I will remember that one.
I love the off the wall freaking side quests in Yakuza. Like one of my favorite ones is in Yakuza 0, there's like a side quest where it's like this like Japanese like boy band, like boy rock band is they have this whole image of being like this like kind of like punk kind of like edgy band, but they're all secretly softies and they want Kiryu to show them how to be tough. So Kiryu's gonna do this entire like thing basically like showing them that like their stance is all wrong. You gotta actually look the part, and they end up getting even more fans.
I mean, if I were to put my trust into Kiryu to looking tough, I think I would come out of it looking tough.
Yeah.
He does a good job of that.
That's a great one. There's also this running joke in 0 where it's like there's this guy that's trying to sell mushrooms, and everyone thinks he's
I
selling.
think I remember him.
Everyone thinks he's selling psychedelics, but it's just regular mushrooms.
I think I remember that guy because I played a little bit of 0, and yeah, he like you meet him very early, and he's like, "Oh, you want to buy some mushrooms?" And you're like, what?" You know? And then he's like, "Oh, I have all these different kinds. I pick them or whatever." And I think Hiro tries to explain to him like,
He's like,
people
you
are
can't.
gonna get the wrong idea when you say that. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm
I
just
think
selling
by
mushrooms. And then like there are people trying to buy them from him thinking that like I think he sells them to him, right? And then they're like, oh, we're gonna get so high on these. He's like, oh, I'm doing good business,
Yeah.
I'm sure that has an interesting resolution, but don't
there's
let me know.
I won't spoil it, but there is a point where Kiro is straight up like, you gotta stop being so sketchy.
Oh yeah, because he's like selling them in like the back alleys and
Yeah.
shit. And he's like, oh, it's just where I set up shop, It's really good. I remember the one in 0 of like was it like the high school girl like selling her underwear.
Oh
and
yeah.
that takes quite a few turns I was not expecting.
See any
But
other
that one
game,
was but that one was funny. I liked it.
any other game, and you'd be like, "What?" But then it's Yakuza, and you just go,
Yeah,
"Okay." It's like, yeah,
yeah. It's like it's Yakuza. Like they know what they're doing. You know, it feels very much like they recognize what people make fun of Japanese culture for, and they take that and do and kind of run with it. You know,
Yakuza's all just is just one big parody, and that's I think
yeah,
why it's so charming.
yeah. The main story, like the main crime drama, is usually taken very seriously, and there's a lot of really good emotional bits in there. But outside of that, yeah, they recognize it's also really dumb.
Mm.
You know, and I think they recognize that'll stick with people. You know, when you know how to mix drama and comedy, it works really like when you do serious, like when people view Yakuza as like a comedic game, when it does like more serious stuff, it hits harder, you know?
Mm.
So
I think the reason it's so successful is because it is a comedic game, but it's like so effective with its comedy that like it comes out of nowhere, and you go, "Oh,
yeah, like people go into it being like, oh, these games are just batshit crazy. And you're playing them and you're like, they are, but you're like, the writing is really good. And I'm like kind of invested in these characters, you know?
hmm,
They find ways of hitting the right notes. And even when they make fun of their own sentimentality in the game is really good. You know, I just wish Infinite Wealth had more shorter side stories because if I pulled it up right now, there's probably like half a dozen that are like the blue, which means like there's still more to do. You know, like there's one I still haven't finished where it's this like he's like a Japanese musician and he's flown to Hawaii to do like this really cool music video and have like wind and everything, and he has like all of his roadies like trying to flap like big leaves at him and it's not working, but then you help this old guy who claims to be a wind shaman, and he's like, and you're like, oh, can you help with that? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. You know, I still haven't finished that one yet, so I'm not sure what happens, um, but I remember quite a few really good ones in seven. Like my favorite in seven was probably the sumo wrestler who was
mm,
training with the tree because his friend was injured, but he was talking about him as if he was dead. You know, and then you fight him as Ichiban to be like, bro, you got to stop this. You know,
yeah." Now
yeah.
that whole series is just amazing. I'm glad that
Oh yeah.
Sega finally got it to click over here.
Yeah, I think seven has the was it the murder mystery with the baseball guy, or no? It's like the baseball player that like people want to kill him or something. I forget the whole details of that one because it was pretty late, but I just remember that one being kind of bad shit.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's in Yakuza Zero, there's a Kiru teaching the dominatrix how to be a better dominatrix.
And then I think seven has it's like that dude who's in his underwear who can't feel pain, and you're trying to do everything like you beat him up, and he's just like nothing. I feel nothing. And then in seven, there's also that one girl who's a dominatrix, right? And like she's getting a lot of shit for it or whatever because she's bad at her job, I think, or
Oh, maybe
something.
that was seven, not zero.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Ichiban gets her and the dude who can't feel pain together, you know, and she gets him to feel pain, and he's like, oh my god, this is incredible, and they just like become an item or something. It was like they find ways of making ridiculous stuff wholesome. Like I don't
Yeah,
know how they do it.
that
It's
must
a
have been
weird,
seven.
yeah, it was. It's a weird magic formula they have, and they're still
Mm,
doing it. You know, like I think in this one you can kind of tell the main creator isn't there anymore a little bit, but it's still like really good. Like the gameplay's fantastic. I really enjoy Hawaii. It's a really fun setting to explore, especially when you get the streetway surfer or a Segway. You find a Segway, um, and you can use that as your like move around to. One thing I like about it is if you have it, you can go into the map and set like a waypoint, and then you can just auto drive to it, which is
mm.
really nice. And you can also, when you start leveling up, there are certain enemies that become so weak you can just knock them out in like one hit, which saves you a lot of time as well. Um, a lot of quality of life enhancements, I think, in terms of like the gameplay and kind of exploring. But so far, the side stories have been really good, but I just think they're overall not the same quality as seven.
Mm.
Just like a lot of them are really sentimental for no reason, and they just have too many segments that they need to like trimmed down, I think.
From what I've heard, it gets better the farther it goes. But
I'm sure it does, but the main story is actually really good. Like, I'm very invested in Ichiban in Hawaii and what's going on there. Like, I'm very invested in what's going to happen. So, but I'm only
did
in
you
chapter 5, so I'm
yeah.
not super far in.
So speaking of new releases, have you seen the dumpster fire that is Suicide Squad?
I haven't. All I've heard is that it's not very good.
I've heard that the gameplay itself is painfully average and the story is just insulting.
I think the insulting part is that this is what Rocksteady's been doing since Arkham Knight.
Well, I found out, I was reading deeper into it. Apparently, all the people that made Rocksteady the great studio was left during the production of this game.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like,
So
I remember reading about, like, between Arkham Knight and this, like, the main guys at Rocksteady were leaving, and
this game drove them away, apparently.
Yeah, like, this is their Marvel's The Avengers game. Even though I think that Avengers game is better than some people give it credit, because from what I remember, that game, it starts out just like a typical, like, just kind of third person action adventure game. Like, it's fine, but then halfway through it turns into a live service game.
Yeah.
And that definitely felt like Square Enix saying to them, like, oh, you have to throw this in. Whereas Dynamic, they didn't want to do that. So they kind of got a bad rap. But whereas with Suicide Squad, I think it was more Warner Brothers forcing them to do all this extra stuff, and then
I'm sure it was
just a lot of turmoil at Rocksteady trying to, like, make it work.
Yeah, and they drove them all away, and then they farted out this game that somehow looks worse than Arkham's Knight.
Yeah, it's so rough, and I'm just so afraid that this game is going to kill them. Like, I'm so afraid, especially because it's Warner Brothers, and recently Warner Brothers has had a history of just dropping shit.
Yeah,
if it doesn't work, they just throw it away.
Like, the only studio there that seems
would be so bad. That would hurt so much if they did that.
The only studio that seems to be safe at Warner Brothers is like NetherRealm.
But NetherRealm still make quality games.
Yeah, well, that's because Ed Boon runs that like a tight ship, basically.
Yeah, and they recognize that Mortal Kombat will always be successful, and if they were, say, to do an Injustice 3, it would work out just fine. Like, NetherRealm have always been very talented, like Midway Chicago or whatever. They've always been very talented.
Well, it's because they've always had the same guy at the top running it.
Yeah, roughly. I mean, the Mortal Kombat team originally was just like a handful of dudes, and a lot of those guys are still there. Like, it's not just Ed Boon, but also like Steve Perrin, John Vogel, Dan Forden. Yeah, like all these guys.
The only one who's really gone is John Tobias.
Yeah, Tobias left. It was around like the Mythologies and Special Forces era, where I think he felt the series wasn't going in the way that it should have went. And at that time, I would have agreed with him, because Mortal Kombat 4 didn't really... I don't think it hit as well as they wanted it to.
Yeah. I mean, they made up for it with Deadly Alliance.
Yeah, but I think...
Especially Deception.
Yeah, but Mortal Kombat 4 was made as an arcade game, and that's how they were viewing it. And I think they weren't prepared at that time to do like, oh, we got to move into home consoles now. But Deadly Alliance transitioned very well, and I think Deception improved on that formula. And then Armageddon, I still really like Armageddon, even though it feels like a step back in some ways. But they were able to make that transition like really, really well. And for a while, that was the best thing Midway had, because that's when Midway was still around. Kids, do you remember Midway? I do. Because at that time, they had Mortal Kombat, but almost everything else they were doing just wasn't really there. Like, they were making new Gauntlet games here and there. And I think those games are better than people give them credit for, but I think at the time that wasn't what people wanted.
I mean, Gauntlet Legends is a great game to still play, and it's a updated version, Shadow Legacy or something, whatever the one on GameCube, PS2 was.
Yeah, and then there was that one on, I think it was on the 360, Seven Sorrows.
I have that on PS2, so I think
PS2 Xbox. Yeah, that was the last one they made, and I remember liking it. Like, at the time, it didn't get good reviews, but I remember renting it, and
That was the
playing
one
it
that
and really
Don
enjoying
Romero
it.
like made a bunch of characters for, and then they didn't use any of his characters.
Yeah, yeah. And it had like Saul DeVito was there, who was also part of Midway, who was part of the Mortal Kombat team. So,
Also, one of
they were
the
trying to
most
cross pollinate a little bit, but it just by that point I think they were just completely gone,
they put out one of the most underappreciated platformers from that era too. Did you ever play Doctor Muto?
Yeah, I've played Dr. Muto. That is a really
That
cool game.
you know what the fun fact about that game is?
What's that?
That was the final game made by the original Atari.
Huh. Interesting.
That was Atari Games, like the remains of Atari Games after they got acquired by I think it was they got acquired by Time Warner, and then Time Warner got acquired by Midway.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember that. And
Yeah,
then
that was Ed Logg's final game, I believe.
nice, nice. I mean, it's a good game to go out
It
on.
is. It's a really good platformer that nobody played.
Does fuck who owns that game now then?
Probably Warner Brothers. Not that they
But Warner
care.
Brothers didn't completely buy Midway. At least I don't think they did.
They
Like
bought
they bought
everything that
They bought Mortal Kombat. That's what they wanted.
they
And
basically bought Midway Chicago, and that was
yeah, which was Mortal Kombat. And oh yeah, they're also doing the Suffering at the time. The Suffering games are really good.
mm,
Those are way better than you expect them to be. Like when I first saw them as a kid, I was like, I don't know, some about these seem off to me. And then I eventually got around to the Suffering games. And I'm like, these are good. Like these are genuinely like fun games. I don't know if they've aged the best. It's been a long time, but like for what they are, trying to be like kind of survival horror-y, shootery, kind of like kind of manhunt-ish, I think. They're not bad, like at all. So
yeah. Midway still made good games. Midway's big problem was they just did not know how to transition from arcade to home console.
yeah, like they definitely had talented people who could really still make good games, and there were still good games being made in the mid 2000s. Like your Mortal Kombat's and the Suffering games,
I
and
mean, even
but
Mortal Kombat.
their sports games went away as well because like NFL Blitz was something they were really known for.
Well, they lost the license and they couldn't
Yeah,
make it fun
and
anymore.
yeah, like NBA Jam kind of went away unfortunately. But I think that was just at that time people had moved on to like this was during like EA Sports Big, I think. So everyone was playing NBA Street and trying to do an NBA Jam. Well, then they did a bunch of NBA Jam and then eventually Hang Time games. So I think people just kind of got sick of them. Yeah, and even they were making games like Dr. Muto or whatever, but they also had like I remember the Ed and Nettie game they made, the Misadventures, and it is
They made that?
whatever. They published it. It was made
Oh,
by
A2
Behavior.
A2M made it, I believe, or
Yeah,
Behavior as they're known now.
the Dead by Daylight people.
Do you know the story about why they changed their name?
Sorry. This is a sneeze. Well, weren't they were originally Behavior Active?
They
Then they
were
changed to Artificial Mind and
Mind and
Movement, and then they went back to Behavior Interactive.
So
was it like a copyright thing?
No, their abbreviation during the Artificial Mind and Movement era was A2M, which they discovered. Someone had mentioned to him, A2M stands for something else, right?
I had to think about that for a second. I'm sorry.
Yeah. They were informed about that, and they decided to go back to Behavior after they discovered that.
Yeah, I don't blame them on that one.
Yeah, but that's the. I forgot they made a shit ton of license games that were surprisingly okay.
And they made the game that caught my eye as a kid, Naughty Bear.
Oh yeah, they did make Naughty Bear.
It's over there somewhere, and I do intend to do a complete playthrough of it because it's a game I really want to know. Because I played the demo and I remember liking it, but I don't know if I ever liked it enough to really play. I think it was just the idea of it just tickled me when it first came out, like a teddy bear that just murders everything.
They also made Wet.
I like Wet. I that's another one I have now. I played and beat that I think like 2 years ago.
I think
it was fine. Bethesda eventually published it because I think that was a game that was meant to be published by Midway. I think. Or no, I think Activision was going to publish it, but then they kind of just didn't. And then Bethesda just took it because they were like, we need something else to put out, because we're in between like Elder Scrolls or whatever.
I think Matt McMuscles was a a bug tester on Wet, and I think he
Yes,
actually
he
did a whole.
was.
I think he said that the entire experience was miserable for him too.
Yeah, which I'm sure it was. I can't imagine a video game tester being like a genuinely fun job to be.
Well,
Like
he
it
did a whole
sounds
series
nice,
about all the
but
games that he bug tested, and he said a lot of them were fun. He said that one was miserable though.
yeah, like it sounds like a nice glamorous job, but it's like you don't really get paid that much and it's kind of annoying. And nowadays, most dev studios don't really pay for that. They just, early access, which is just the consumer bug tests it for them
The
basically.
consumers find the bugs.
Exactly. I mean, they're going to find the bugs anyways, but anyways, still looking through Midway stuff. Yeah, oh yeah, Blitz the League. That was controversial at the time. Um Oh yeah, they were doing the NBA Ballers series, but that didn't really hit. They started doing a bunch of licensed games like the Ant Bully movie game
Whew.
and the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, developed by High Voltage. And they were still trying to make Spy Hunter a thing, but Spy Hunter never really caught on.
Oh yeah, they made that really dark and edgy one in like the mid 2000s. Like
Yeah, it
that
looks.
wasn't very
I think
good.
it has. Is that Vin Diesel on the cover, or The Rock, or somebody? It's one of them. It's one of those guys. Yeah, that's The Rock. Yeah, Nowhere to Run.
Oh, yeah,
Weird as hell. Like Happy Feet and Hour of Victory. Did you ever play Hour of Victory?
I don't think I did.
Oh God, that is like probably the blandest World War II first person shooter I've ever played.
They published the first two Shadow Hearts games as well.
That they did. They published that weird Aqua Teen Hunger Force golf game. I still haven't. I still have. I've been meaning to play this game for a long time, and I still haven't done it.
That is
It's like
such
a
an
kart
odd concept.
racing fighting golf game thing, and people do not like it. But I imagine probably a lot of it is people being like, "Oh, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, ew," Because I know the Futurama game didn't get a lot of good reviews at the time.
No, the Futurama game's apparently really
It's
meh,
fine. It's fine.
but it's also
It's
it's
better than
no
it's no Simpsons Hit and Run,
no.
but it's fine.
It's apparently more notable just for how expensive it is nowadays.
Yeah, yeah. And then I remember when the Family Guy game came out. I played that a bunch.
Wasn't that also kind of just like it was fine?
It's
Wasn't
fine.
really.
The sequel isn't very good. The multiverse one.
Oh, yeah, that was made by Heavy
Um,
Iron.
yeah, poor Heavy Iron. Yeah, Unreal Turn. They published Unreal Tournament 3. Weird. Stranglehold. Oh, Stranglehold was a big deal for me. It's it's okay. I don't think it's a great game, but it's fine. And then, oh yeah, they did the TNA game. I remember the TNA game. Do you remember the TNA game?
I remember it.
Yeah, it's not bad
Boy.
for what it is. It's not bad. But we were still in that period of the SmackDown versus Raw games still being good, so it just didn't hit the same way. Like the Ukes games are starting to go downhill, but they weren't bad or anything yet.
Yeah.
And then Blitz League 2, Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe.
Technically, like from a gameplay perspective, that game's great, but why did they censor everything? Well, apparently
Uh,
it was Warner Brothers. That's why.
yeah. And then Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe. Man, people were so pissed at this one.
That's Mortal Kombat 8, technically.
Yeah, but everyone hated it because of that big old T on the corner. It
Yeah,
is
and all
team.
the fatalities are so lame.
Yeah, like which is weird because like I've seen worse fatalities in other Mortal Kombat games, but it is neutered. But if you go back and play it now for a fighting game, it's not bad. It's not a
No,
bad
it,
fighting
it
game.
it plays great. Like I think they finally
Yeah.
figured out the 3D formula right before they abandoned it.
Yeah.
Which I mean I'm fine with because I much prefer what Nine
No,
did.
I think this one was going more for the 2D format.
It still has the 3D camera style though.
Okay.
It's not a pure
Yeah.
2D game like Nine was.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I,
It's just a shame we never got to rip Superman's head off.
You know what one other thing I find really fascinating about that game is it is one of those like games that came out right before the New 52, so it's like one of the last real glimpses of pre-New 52 DC.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different time.
Very
It's
different
interesting.
time. And then, yeah, do you know the last game that has Midway on the credits?
I do not.
Wheelman. You
Wheel
remember
Man.
Wheelman?
I gotta look this up.
I've never played this game. I've been wanting to hunt it down. It like I think it's just some like BS action adventure game that's like, oh, you're Vin Diesel doing Vin Diesel things. It
Oh,
was it was well
it's a series
Ubisoft.
on Netflix.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
That's not what I was looking for.
because this came out when like in 2009, I think, which was when Midway was like selling everything off.
Oh yeah, because
Because
most
Ubisoft
copies,
ended up
yeah.
publishing it.
Wow, that's goofy. Yeah, it was still
Yeah,
midway in the PAL region.
thank God. Um, yeah, because that was this 2009 when they were like selling everything off, and then yeah, it was Warner Brothers acquired most of it.
Yeah, well, they mostly just wanted the Chicago studio,
Yeah, yeah.
which I don't blame them.
According to this, they acquired most of the company's assets, including their studios, the rights to Mortal Kombat, and the Wheelman series. They still technically own Wheelman. The offer did not include the San Diego and Newcastle studios or the TNA video game series, but we haven't had a TNA game since. So
I'm wondering if they ended up with Dr. Muto just because basically the former Atari studio was already long closed by then.
yeah, they probably have stuff like Dr. Muto and all that stuff. They probably do. They probably just don't realize they do. That would be my guess.
There, it's funny thinking about Dr. Muto. There was a ton of platformers in that era that are completely forgotten about nowadays.
Metal Arms.
Metal Arms, really good one.
Metal
Did you ever
Arms is a
play
good one.
Whiplash?
No, but I heard it was really good. I tried playing. Was it Vex? You remember
Oh,
Vex? That was
Vex
the
was
acclaim. That was the acclaim one.
that was Iguana. Well, they were Acclaim Austin at that point, but it was the former
Yeah,
Turok team.
and I remember that one because I was a big fan of the Legends of Wrestling games back then. They're terrible games, but I still really like them. Um, I think it was on the back of the second one. It had an advertisement for Vex, and I went
I
out of my way
believe
to try it, and it's not very good.
no, it's very much Iguana, and I believe the legend Jeff Spangenberg was involved with it at one point.
I think you're right on that. Yeah.
For those who know, Jeff Spangenberg later went on to form Retro Studios before he was fired by Nintendo for doing softcore porn in the studio.
Yeah. Nintendo don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Miyamoto legit showed up and was like, "What the fuck is this?"
he had probably had some words to say.
Well, he didn't get fired. They essentially bought him out and told him to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, because that's how it works in companies. Just buy them out.
Well,
Instead
he
of
was
telling them to fucking leave, which is
he
probably what they
was
should do.
well, they didn't own Retro at the time. I think
Oh, that's right.
because he founded Retro, and then they kind of just like paid it. They basically paid him to go away, and he then used that money to go form Top Heavy Studios, the makers of the wonderful game known as the Guy Game.
How's the same guy who worked on Metroid Prime worked on that fucking game?
I don't think he worked a lot on Metroid Prime. I think he just was there, and then while they were working on it.
I mean, I'm sure he probably had some say in it, but
He did work on Turok though. Know that's for sure.
Oh, thank God.
I mean, Turok 1 and 2 are pretty good games still.
They're good N64 games. That's what I'll say. That's all I'll say.
For pre-Halo FPSs, they're fine.
I tried playing one not that long ago. Nah.
Yeah, I mean they're not like fine art.
I love the idea of Turok. I just don't think as a game it holds up. That's all. I just don't think they hold up anymore. But I think most N64 games don't hold up anymore.
Especially
there's a select few that I still really, really like.
The only first-person shooters from the N64 that really hold up are the two 007 games in Perfect Dark.
Yeah, but even then.
Well, yeah, I mean, Halo just made FPS just better in every way.
Yeah. If you want to know what I have to say about Halo, you check out a Novel Consoles episode on Halo. You can hear me talk more about it.
Did Chris really mean it when he said it's basically you talking him off the ledge the entire time?
Yeah, basically, because he did not like him at all. because he doesn't like Master Chief. He doesn't like. I think he doesn't like the concept of Master Chief in general, and he doesn't like the Flood. It's a lot of just like there's a lot of his hate felt very AVGN, like fuck this shit, right? And there, I mean, yeah, those games have some rough edges, but they're fine. But we'll get back to him at some point whenever he's ready to tackle Halo 3, because I think we'll probably enjoy Halo 3. But yeah, Warner Brothers, port Dr. Muto, and while you're at it, port both Suffering games. I think those games deserve another chance.
Hmm. I think going back, we mentioned Whiplash. I think that was made by Crystal. I think from what I've read, that is
Crystal
actually
Dynamics.
Yeah, Crystal made that.
All right.
I believe it's the Gex team, or at least
Nice.
the remains of the Gex team.
Did the Gex team make the Tomb Raider reboots?
I don't think so. I think that was more the Legacy of Kain team.
That makes more sense.
I mean, to be fair, that team kind of was disbanded after Amy Hennig left to go to Naughty Dog, but
Yeah.
I'm sure the people there probably went over to the Tomb Raider team.
Because all we have from Crystal is that Perfect Dark game. If we're ever gonna see that, we'll see Perfect Dark again. I know we will, because that's was it the Initiative? And then Initiative was having problems, so they called Crystal Dynamics to come in and help with Perfect Dark, and then people are saying, oh, that'll probably mean Perfect Dark's a third person game. I think it'll be fine if it is. No big deal. And yeah, they're working on another Tomb Raider that's being published by Amazon, of all people.
Yeah, that's weird to me, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm surprised Microsoft hasn't tried to buy Crystal, just because they've worked with them so closely in the past. And
they're probably still waiting for the pitchforks to go away.
Yeah. Though I think if they bought Crystal and Eidos, I think people would probably just assume they like, oh, I thought you already had them.
Yeah,
but that could also be like, because Embracer bought them, and maybe Embracer, because they're having issues, they're probably like, oh, Crystal's one of the studios we don't want to let go, because they could be a potential cash cow for them. So
as long as they don't kill them like they did Volition.
I don't think they'll do that with Crystal. I don't, because Crystal's probably the biggest studio they have.
Without Volition, yeah.
Yeah, and they're probably getting some of that extra Microsoft money since they're helping out with Perfect Dark. So, I don't think Crystal will go away. I really don't.
Crystal will probably spin themselves off before they get shut down.
Yeah, I think I view it probably with Crystal is that if there is some issues at Embracer with them, I imagine they would call Phil and be like, hey, there's some trouble here. Do you want to come save us? And I think he'd be like, oh yeah, I'll save you, no problem. Like Microsoft's there if they need him, But I view it as they would probably buy Crystal and Eidos if it meant they didn't die, and I think people would be fine with that, genuinely.
Did you see Disney
with this potential whatever's going to happen with Xbox thing as far as like third party stuff? I imagine say the next Tomb Raider or whatever will probably be multiplat anyways. So
yeah. Did you see Disney bought Epic Games?
They didn't buy them; they were investing in them, right?
I thought they full out bought them, or they're making moves to potentially do it.
Well, from what I heard, they invested in Epic Games.
Okay, I heard it was like they were making moves or something.
Yeah, well, I don't see them. I feel like if they tried to buy Epic Games, I think the government would step in and break them up. Genuinely, because Disney is so big now that I think if they tried to buy the studio that has the biggest game in the world right now, that I think the government would have to step in and break them up. So Disney's trying to be smart with where they put their money, and when you use the term investment, oh, we're putting a bunch of money into Epic for them to do. I don't even know what it's going to be. Is it that we're going to get Mickey Mouse and Fortnite now? Is that all we're getting?
It's so the way it sounds is they bought a $1.5 billion stake in the company. So.
Okay, so they're like a shareholder.
It's kind of like how Nintendo had a stake in Rare for the longest time, but they didn't own them outright.
Yeah, though the thing is, Epic doesn't really make games anymore, so I don't expect Epic to make like a Donald Duck game.
They make the biggest game.
Yeah, a game that I think its popularity is starting to wane a bit.
It's weird. Every time you think it is, it looks like they get like a big surge.
Yeah, I mean they're still doing fine. Like even if they're starting to slow down, it just means instead of like 3 billion people playing, it's like 2 billion. Like ooh, you know.
I think I've
I
read
don't know.
somewhere that like they say like Netflix's biggest competitor is Fortnite. Not in terms of what they do, just in terms of how much time they're taking from potential customers.
Yeah, because Fortnite just got the proper formula for longevity.
Mm.
You know that game has been out since 2017, and as far as we know, it's still going strong. You know.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those games that I've never had any interest in, but I kind of respect it just for what it is.
Yeah. In fact, out of curiosity, let's see. Right now, it has 2 million people playing it. Right now.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So it's still cooking, though. Looking at this, um, following the player count, some bits here and there that kind of drop off, but this is going. Oh, this is going like hour by hour. Like who fuck cares about that?
Yeah.
um, but yeah, like according to this, it peaked once with 11 million players. So at least this is when they started following it back in like 23, because it doesn't even have player counts earlier than that. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, like people are still playing it. So
It's going to be one of those games that something like seriously better has to come out to like take people's attention away from it.
yeah, it'll have to be something that is a complete sensation. You know,
And I don't see that anytime soon.
we never know. As I think Jeff Grubb once said, like the next biggest game is just going to be some random thing on Steam that blows up.
Yeah,
Like
that's
like
usually how it goes.
that's viral games now. Like companies spending like millions of dollars to make these big AAA games, and it's like that's great, and they probably do just fine. Like say Spider-Man 2, we know how much that game cost, and I don't know if it'll recoup those costs. Maybe over a long period of time, but who knows how long or short or how much they want it to recoup. But then look at a game like you know, what was that game on Steam a while ago that people really really liking? I forget what it was called.
Hmm.
It was like four people on a planet, and they couldn't like talk to each other, and they were trying to like scrounge up resources, keep the profit initiative up. I forget what that game's called.
I know what you're thinking. I can't remember right now.
Yeah,
I'm
but yeah,
just thinking of like
people are really digging that game, and I guarantee you that game has recouped its costs, no problem.
well, I mean
You know what I mean?
you also had stuff like
Pal World.
oh yeah, Pal World.
Howard blew the fuck up, but it feels like that cooled off real quick.
yeah, because the controversy went away and everyone lost interest.
Yeah. Oh, Lethal Company is the game I'm thinking
Lethal
of.
Company, that's right.
Yeah, that game does look fun. Not gonna lie.
I mean, even earlier though, like think of like indie games like Fall Guys and Among Us. They were huge for a while.
Yeah. Trombone Champ. That's a fun game. But yeah, or even something like Baldur's Gate 3, which is
Baldur's Gate
you
3
could
put
almost
the
argue that's an indie game.
I mean, it technically is. The studio's independent.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Baldur's Gate 3 put the fucking industry on notice.
I don't know if it really did. I think people are kind of overrating that.
I don't know. It did a lot better than people expected.
Yeah, but it's like, is that game gonna cause other studios to like? I don't expect other studios to match Baldur's Gate 3 in terms of like content.
No,
I
I
can't.
don't.
I feel like people can't expect that, and I thought we were bitching about games having too much content already, and now it's like this game does it like. And it's just like, oh, this game's going to cause other games to be good. It's like, well, I think games are just going to be good regardless. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
don't think it's so much we're bitching about the content. It's more how they're using said content. I think Baldur's Gate 3's biggest strength is it is such a well constructed game. Like there is so much content and all of it is like fun.
well, yeah, but I feel like all games are trying to be that.
Yeah.
So, because I think the first time I heard that comparison was Dragon Age Dreadfall. right? Like, because who knows what's going on with BioWare right now? Like, it feels like they're kind of in a weird limbo situation as well. And people were comparing Baldur's Gate to that, whereas people like, oh, can Dragon Age be that? And it's like, it probably won't be, but I imagine if Dragon Age is good on its own merits, it'll be good,
Hmm.
you know. But I mean, who knows when we'll see that game again? Because I
Yeah.
guess it was supposed to come out this year, but I think it got pushed back to next year. I honestly don't know. No idea. And I imagine once that's done, then they're all in on the next Mass Effect, but it'll probably be a long time till we get that, and I'm fine with waiting. You know, I don't need a new Mass Effect right now.
No, I mean I'm fine with the legendary collection.
I still gotta play Witcher 3, man.
I do too.
It's on the list. I genuinely want to get to that game this year and finally sit down and play it properly.
I think in terms
know?
of Western RPGs, I have to play Fable 2 first. I've already promised that one.
Well, I was playing a little bit of Fable 1 for another podcast. It's a very good game, but I don't know when we're gonna get to that episode, so I've put it on the back burner for now.
Mm.
But Fable 1, giving it a proper chance again, I would say I'm liking it more. You know what I mean? Like, it's now that I kind of know what I'm getting into with Fable 1, I can appreciate it more for what it is. And plus, on the Series X, it runs so much better. On 1, for some reason, it ran like dog shit. I don't know
Yeah.
why. But Series X, it runs perfectly fine. So I think that helps. It's still very clunky, though.
Well, yeah,
That
Fable
game
2 is the best.
that game
of the
is incredibly
series.
clunky. 2, the little bit I played of 2 was so much better. You know, it was a much smoother experience.
Mm.
So, you know, I would like to get to that trilogy as well, but yes, it's too many games to play, man. It's ridiculous, especially when they're like RPGs, and people are like, "These games are great," and then you look at their how long to beats, or at least that's what I do. Whenever I'm interested in the game, I immediately check just to see what I'm getting into, and then seeing a game like Witcher 3's time and just be like, "But I know it's good. I know it's good."
Yeah.
Because I played a bit of it on Switch. In fact, I still have my Switch copy over yonder. Right, I think like right there, you can see Geralt's head. And it's fine, but I remember I was like, this on Switch though, you know, it was running fine. You know, like if it's all you have, go ahead. But when I got the Xbox copy, I was like, oh yeah, this is much better. And
Hmm.
started playing it, but then that's when I got COVID. And playing that game when you have COVID is I wouldn't recommend it. So I put it down, and then by the time I was well again, I completely forgot what I was doing, and I didn't want to restart it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I am with Witcher 3. But hopefully this year, it might be like the big RPG I play.
Hmm.
But we'll see. I mean, to be fair, Infinite Wealth is a big one as well.
Yeah.
So.
Persona 3 Reload and so
I don't know if I'm gonna get to Persona 3 this year. I'd like to, but I don't know if I am.
Yeah. No, I get it.
I need to beat a Persona game at some point. But the one I will beat is 4 because I genuinely like 4.
Can't say I disagree. Yeah, but yeah, so we got about an hour and a half out of this. Just
Nothing like shooting the shit.
shooting some bullshit last minute.
We make it work.
Yeah, but
Is this content? I don't know if it's content. Maybe, I mean, maybe people enjoy the parasocial aspect of podcasts where you listen to people talk and then you like commentate at it while you're listening to it.
I think this is a record for our first episode where we didn't mention the 3DO like once.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I haven't played the game that's next. I haven't even touched it yet. So,
I mean, there's not much there.
well,
Oh.
that game. No, I've played that one. I'm talking to like I'm talking about
Shockwave.
Shockwave. Yeah, I haven't touched Shockwave yet.
Okay,
But
I was gonna say, I'm like, there's not much to say about our next game.
No, Shanghai Triple Threat. I have played. I played more of it than I expected.
I bopped to the music. That's usually what I did.
I'll refrain any words.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's good, but
I'm saying it's a game. That's what
yeah.
I'll say. It's one of the games of all time.
Yes. But yeah, so next week we'll do our big collab, and following that we'll do Shockwave. But once again, guys, thanks for joining us on the 3DO Experience. You can find the 3DO Experience on all the major podcasting platforms. The YouTube version of this episode will be out shortly after its release, and you can find all of our links at linktree/thebarberwhogames. And if you'd like, you can join the GNC Podcast Network Discord server. Talk all things GNC, 3DO, Geek Addicts, gaming, anime, all sorts of stuff. And with that, guys, we will see you all later.
Bye bye.